Okay, so what's up guys? Don Toliver dropped a new album. So in today's video I'm gonna show you how to make a beat for his new album. Let's get right into it. Before we go any further, only 3% of people watching my videos are subscribed to my channel. So if you're not subscribed, make sure to fix that and subscribe to my channel. We're trying to get to 300 subs this month, so feel free to help me out. Thanks. So with this beat, I went for Leave the Club kind of vibe. So I used some dark synths and then I made really unique bounce. First, I started with Juno 106 with the preset Chilled. It's a pad, and I layer on this chord progression, which is very simple. It's just a regular D minor chord, so D, F, A, and then I took these two notes and I copied them and I pitched them up an octave, and then I moved this and this note. Then is the same chord, but I removed this note and I put this note a little bit further, and to make it a little bit more interesting I added these bass notes which are just following the notes in the chord, so it's D, F, A, and then I also use this A sharp to make it a little bit darker. This is what a melody sounds like with no effects on. As you can see, I used a lot of effects on this sound. The first one is FabFilter Saturn 2 with a preset called Fat, Tape and Comp PM. I used the Saturn for a little saturation. Then I added a half time to make it even darker. Next I used this equalizer to get rid of all the low frequencies and to clean it up a little bit. Fresh Air to boost the mid frequencies and also the high frequencies. Then I used the Portal for texture. I cleaned it up even more with this equalizer. Then I added Valhalla Vintage Verb to make it a little bit more ambient, I would say. I just turned up this low cut knob, turned down the pre-delay, decay and mix. And on top of everything, I added this effect track with a preset called Cool Small Space, which can be found in the spaces. It's this fourth one. It makes it sound like it's a little bit further from me. I use this effect very often in my loops. This is the melody with all the effects on. Then I used Juno 106 again, this time with a synth space preset, and I layered on this really simple melody. It only follows the note from the chord, it's D and F. And here it's F again. For the effects I used this equalizer to get rid of all the low frequencies and to clean it up a little bit. Then I also added this vintage verb to put it into the background just a little bit. I turned on the pre-delay knob, mix knob, and I turned on the decay knob as well, and I turned up the low cut knob so the reverb won't be applied to low frequencies. And on top of everything I added this S1 stereo imager to make it sound wider. This is what it sounds like with all the effects on. The next sound that I used is this arpeggio from Analog Lab. It's called Blister and it sounds like this with no effects on. As you can see, it's the same melody as the main one, but without these two high notes that were here. For the effects, I used the halt sign because the arpeggio was way too fast. Then EQ to clean it up a little bit. Then I used this compressor FET76 because the arpeggio was way too loud at some point and then it was very quiet. Next, I used Valhalla Vintage Verb for a little bit of ambience. And then I used S1 stereo imager to make it very wide. This is what the arpeggio sounds like with all the effects on. Then I added another Analog Lab, this time with an atmosphere called Blade Runner Blues. I used this atmosphere to make the sample sound less empty, and this is what it sounds like with no effects on. As As you can hear, it's very poor in sound, so I added these effects. First we have the Fab filter again to clean it up a little bit. Then I used Shaper Box 2 with this filter module. I used this preset called Sign Like, and I used the Shaper Box to add some kind of movement to the sound. Then I added this Valhalla Vintage Verb with a long decay to put it into the background. Then I used this Pancake 2, so it's panning from left to right. This is what the atmosphere sounds like with all the effects on. Way better. The sample was missing low end, so I added this bass, and this is what it sounds like with no effects on. For the effects, I used my regular bass preset, which is just the equalizer to get rid of all the low frequencies below 30 Hz and all the high frequencies above 10 kHz. Then it's Saturn 2 with a preset called Das Scoop BM, and on top of that I always put this Ozone 10 imager with these 4 bands to make all the low frequencies mono and all the high frequencies stereo. This is what the bass sounds like with all the effects on. And the last sound that I used is this ear candy. I reversed it and pitched it up so it matches the key of the sample, and this is what it sounds like with no effects on. For the effects, I used the equalizer to clean it up a little bit, and then I used Valhalla Vintage Verb for a little bit of ambience, and then I added this Delay Eternity with the preset Basic Ping Pong so it doesn't just cut out at the end of the sample. This is what it sounds like with all the effects on. When I had all the melodies done, I routed them all to this mixer track and I used these effects. The first effect is Shaper Box 2 with a volume module with a preset called Square, and I set the length to 116, and I also turned down the mix to 9%. I added a Shaper Box to add even more movement in the sample. Then I added this equalizer to cut out all low frequencies below 30 Hz and to clean it up a little bit. Then I used this Volv Compressor 3 with a preset Punch and Crunch, and I turned down the compression and the output volume. I used this Volv compressor to compress the whole sample and to make it sound a little bit more vintage. On top of that, I added this virtual tape machines. I have no idea what this does, but it makes it sound a little bit better. Then I used this virtual mix rack with a preset called Mix Bus Fed just to glue it all together, and on top of that I added this Fruity Stereo enhancer to make the sample wider, and I set the stereo separation to 8%, and the last effect that I used is this Mid-Side 3 just to make all the low frequencies below 125 Hz mono. Yeah, so that's all for a sample. Now let's make a beat out of it. First I'll play you the final beat and then I'll break it down to you. So as I said earlier, I was aiming for the very unique bounce, so I didn't place the snare to the usual place, which is right here on the third beat, but I put it to the second and the fourth beat. Then I layer down this 808 pattern. I added this roll at the end just for the variation. Then I layer down this hi-hat pattern. As you can see, I played around with the velocity of the notes a lot just to get the bounce that I was looking for. Next, I added another hi-hat which only plays at every single beat. As you can hear, it makes it a little bit more bouncy. Then I added this percussion, snare, and the last sound that I added is this open hat. And I forgot that I also added this kick. Then I mixed this beat and I structured it and added a few sounds to make it sound a little bit more interesting. I first started with this intro. So basically, I just cut the sample after 2 bars and then I added automation clip of the delay and reverb, and I also added this transition to make it sound a little bit smoother. And then I also used this sound, which is another transition, and again to make it sound a little bit more smoother. So yeah, that's the whole beat. So if you like this video, let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my videos and loop kits. Don't forget to follow me on IG, and also don't forget to like this video. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.